Next is our public comment. We showed it on our agenda starting at 10. So as I call out those that are to share their comments, if they're missed because of the scheduling, we'll circle back at the end to make sure they have an opportunity. Public comments are going to come to you, board members, some of it through Zoom and also in person, 2 minutes. And we're going to flash a 30, what, are you going to do a 1 minute or just the last 30 seconds to wrap it up? And we, yeah, we'll try to give that cue through this. We request those that are in public comment to be mindful of the others that want to try to get their comments in. Okay, we're going to start off with, it's Zoom, through Zoom, D. Gray with Nicole Mason, who's also on Zoom on deck. D, are you with us? Okay, let's try Nicole Mason with Christina Bogus, who's in person. Nicole? Okay, we'll circle back. Christina? And then Dr. Michael Anderson, you're on deck. We just, yeah, that's turned on.
Okay, so I need to be clear today that I'm speaking as an individual and a taxpayer. I will send you a confidential email for context. Please read it. I intend to be bold this morning, so hang on to your seats. I have had more education and training in CRT theory, praxis, and application than most attorneys. My latest master's degree included ample instruction on the theorem and how to install and apply it. And if it was the intent of this board to eliminate and prevent the application of this ideology from Utah schools, you've failed in a catastrophic way. I'm not sure who actually wrote this rule. It appears they misled and lied to this board about its effects in real-time education. It's my opinion that they should be terminated because they really are not that good at their job. To believe the language that was put forth to debate was anything but worthless, I think personally is delusional. However, if it was your intent to install CRT theorems, praxis, and pedagogy within our institutions, you did a great job. Kudos to you. Just be clear and honest with your constituents. Don't lie to them. And that's why I'm here today. I feel the public has been lied to. You've received many comments in public comment. I read all 357 pages of it, saying to clarify the language in the rules so that it will not be misconstrued as giving license for community members to attack the credibility and livelihood of educators. I am an educator. May I be frank? The credibility of our teachers and administrators in this educational season should be attacked. Their credibility should be questioned, and they should be held to account for what is in our schools. I distrust the Utah education system so much that even though I work for it, I won't give you my own children. This system harassed, neglected, and abused my oldest child, and I will make any sacrifice necessary to protect my younger children from Utah public education. Transparency in education is vital. It's in your own educator standards, and to write a rule that violates your own educator standards, in my opinion, is asinine. Who does something like that, really? The very training you mandate is in violation of Utah laws, and I know because I looked it up. And nobody caught it. And regardless of where I stand on this issue, the people of Utah elected you to do a job. And regardless of what I think, the voters are watching, and in my opinion, this board is acting like cowards. If you want one, own it. If you want the other, own it. But don't lie to your constituents. Thank you.
We'll invite Dr. Michael Anderson with Nicole Christopherson, who's also in person on deck.
Thank you for this opportunity, esteemed members of the board. I am speaking about public educator licenses, in particular, my petition to get one. Board Rule R 277-3015 says, a license applicant who has received or completed license preparation activities inconsistent with this rule may present compelling information and documentation for review and approval or denial by the superintendent to satisfy the professional educator license requirements. When I presented Sydney Dixon with my transcript for my doctorate in mathematics, I feel that was compelling evidence for a professional educator license in Utah. When she rejected it and said I was deficient in pedagogy, I took 32 credits of mathematics pedagogy through Western Governors University and asked again for my case to be considered for a professional educator license. When she denied that and said I was deficient in student teaching, I turned into her the year of teacher reviews that I received from my teacher mentor and my principal at the school where I work, Discovery Academy in Provo. And when she responded to that the board rule only applies to those who have extenuating circumstances, which the board rule does not say anything about extenuating circumstances, only compelling information and documentation. I do have an extenuating circumstance in that my program for a license at Western Governors does not allow student teaching to be done at a therapeutic school, which is where I work. So I would have to quit my job for 4 months to do student teaching in order to go from my associate license to my professional license. So with all due respect to the board, I would like to have my petition considered for a professional educator license. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Next, we'll have Nicole Christofferson, who will be in person with Melissa Moore here on deck on Zoom. Nicole? Are we being able to be heard in the overflow? Yes? Okay. Not getting Nicole. Melissa Moore, are you with us on Zoom?
Yes,
With
I am.
Laurel Fitzer, you're in person, that's an in-person on deck?
Can you hear me?
Jerry, we're not getting any of our Zoom people who want to speak in public comment.
Can you hear me?
Oh, she's here in person? No, she's not. We don't hear it.
Okay, we're going to come back to the Zoom. Laurel Fitzer with James Sullivan on deck.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak today. I was prepared 2 weeks ago and didn't get the chance, so I'm grateful for this time today. I just want you to be aware that in the Murray School District, we were introduced to equity this year, and we, as parents, did grandma requests that cost us over $3,000 to find out all about equity, critical race theory, intersectionality, and comprehensive sexuality education. We believe that this should not be part of our education in Utah schools, and we believe that this new rule that you have proposed does not do anything to change this teaching that is trying to come through. I've looked at Natalie Klein's new rule, and I think she has a lot of definitions, pages and pages that help us have boundaries that keep our children from getting this information put into their schools. I urge you to look at her or accept her rule or change your rule. In many places, I have about 6, I'll email you those, that you could modify to make more clarity in your rule that will keep our children from having this this theory taught in our schools, in the primary and secondary classes. I'd just like you to know that we have a parent who has a second grader who was best friends with a little black boy. He's a white little kid. And when they started teaching anti-racist education, they started not being friends. and the little black boy called his friend a racist and has started bullying him and has ruined the friendship. Now, if that is what the role is in improving diversity in our schools, then it isn't good. And we need to look at it and make sure it doesn't happen. So please do your best as representatives for our state.
Well, next we'll have James Sullivan with Sophia Anderson on deck. Is James an in-person? Okay. Sophia? Then we'll have Kelly Jones on deck.
Hi, my name is Sophia Anderson. I have 4 children. We live in Salt Lake. Like many parents this last year, I've been trying to figure out and connect the dots about where the poison of CRT and equity and these Marxist ideologies are coming from. And a couple of weeks ago, I submitted several grammar requests. Now, before I submitted these requests, I knew that I would find horrific, worrisome things, but I was not prepared to find what I did find. It's our children are being sold out, and you are doing it. I know what's going on behind closed doors now. Superintendent Sydney Dixon, you are complicit in ushering in CRT in our schools, and we won't have it. I will not allow it. Through these grammar requests, I am seeing what you're saying in private, and it's not what you're saying in public, and it's not okay. You have been given a special sacred stewardship over our children, and you are not honoring it. Now, I have records. The public has a right to all of these records. Sydney, you are saying things that are, no, I'm going to speak, I'm sorry. You are saying things and doing things that are harming our children, harming the next generation and our society. There are statements made.
Sophia, your time's up.
There are statements in these meetings that are defaming
Last sentence,
Natalie
please.
Klein. I am going to post every single grandma that I have received on AIM, Academic
Thank
Integrity
you.
Movement.
That's your last sentence.
I
Thank
want
you.
every single
Your 2
parent
minutes
to
is
go
up.
to that website
Please
and
respect
find
the
out
time
what
and
is
the
happening
opportunity. There's other
on this
people that
board.
have
You are
something to
solding,
say.
you are, no,
So
you are
yes,
elected.
yes, you're
You are
asked to-
elected by me. No,
You're
you
being
will
excused
be
right
held
now.
accountable. Go
Thank
to
you.
AIM, Academic Integrity
You're
Movement. You
Pastor.
will find every single grandma, and you'll know what everyone
Sir.
on here is doing. Thank you.
Next, we will have Kelly Jones. Thank you.
I'm here today as a teacher and as a parent of 3 students in Davis School District. I'm concerned as I read over the latest amendments to the rule that they would strip the rule of its intent, which is to support and help more students. The main goal is to support and train our amazing teachers on a topic of vital importance, equity and inclusion. The rule is on the right track. We must give teachers the support that they need to learn, which means sometimes they may not immediately get it right on the road to getting it right. We have to make it possible for this learning to happen and for these sensitive but important topics to be taught. Teachers must know that their administrators will stand with them when their methods are questioned and demeaned by parents, much like today. This is happening. This will happen. Instead of arguing over semantics, I ask the board to adopt the rule as it stands today, while offering a provision that protects teachers as an addendum. Teachers are wary right now. As an educator myself, colleagues have reached out, afraid to speak for their own interests because of the political climate, but determined to continue to teach in a thoughtful and broadening way. I am still hopeful that we can have a genuine discussion about what we need in this rule, because our students need us to see beyond the noise and do what it takes to ensure that they have access to the best education possible. The very people who will be taking this training are feeling that the topic is off limits. Please send them a message that you will have their back as they learn. We cannot afford to lose these good teachers. They are doing a tremendous job. for our students. My students need and want access to a well-rounded education, and they must have it if they are going to succeed in the job market. Please honor the autonomy of teachers to be able to craft culturally engaging and informative lesson plans. We know our students. We're with them every day, and empathy is a huge part of what teachers model in the classroom. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next, we'll have
Zoom test
Kirsten
1 2.
Clan in person, and then we'll move to back to the Zoom. Kirsten here.
I'm on Zoom.
Well, while you're
Can I
on
speak?
Zoom, Kristen,
I'm on
why don't you
Zoom.
proceed?
Yes. Okay. Good morning. Regarding this rule, I want to be clear that all want more emphasis. All I want is more emphasis placed on involving parents in education and training. Statistics show us over and over that children are more successful in schools when their parents are involved in their education. As such, we request the support of amendments to focus on involving parents rather than excluding them. In the present proposed rule in section 3, number 2C, the rule mandates the districts establish professional learning communities, which forces the family and parents to the sideline as spectators. This is not acceptable. The word professional in this line should be struck, and the learning community should absolutely include the parents as partners in education and the person in charge of their child's education. Parents should not be asked to co-parent with the government, the teacher, the principal, or the district. To this end, I support Member Natalie Klein's amendment as a framework moving forward. Parents should be in the driver's seat, and her amendment does the job. Parents should be the steer of this community as their child's advocate and representative. We are thankful Member Klein put forth language that clearly identifies parents as partners in education and not barriers to overcome. Finally, in the present proposed rule in section 3.2i, the board attempts to bypass parental consent when they command that teachers be trained in defending freedom of association. This keeps secrets
30
from
seconds.
parents in the interest of a student's free agency, regardless of age. Again, parents are partners in education and the head of all educational rights for the minor child. I'm thankful for Member Klein clearly defining freedom of association in her amendment, and for these reasons, either defending freedom of association should be struck from section 3.2i, and freedom of association should be defined as in section 2, and Klein's amendment put forth. Thank you for your consideration in placing more emphasis on involving parents.
Okay, thank you. Next, we'll have this, and this will be Zoom, Harmony Vanderhost, are you with us? And then I'll go back to the list. Harmony?
Yes, I am. Can you hear me?
Yes. D, Gray, you're on deck. Okay, Harmony, please continue.
Okay, my name is Harmony Vanderhorst. I'm a Utah Parents United representative from Southern Utah. I would like to address teacher accountability. In late May, Utah Parents United sent the board over 100 pages of testimonials from parents of teachers promoting the ideologies listed in the prohibition section of the current version of R 277-238. Many have been reported to the UPAC and nothing has happened. Allowing this under the guise of the marketplace of ideas is unacceptable. There are some things, ideas, activities, and behaviors simply not appropriate for K-12 education. For example, we do not show pornography to school children. Why would labeling children's character based on skin color be any different? For example, a 14-year-old white male being asked to stand on a chair and own his privilege, being told, "You are an oppressor just by being born with white skin." Any objections to this? Well, one might say we are just discussing ideas. This type of teaching is harmless role play. It was not presented as factual. Is the board okay with this exercise? What if it were the other way around? Let's ask a 14-year-old Black girl to kneel at his feet and admit her oppressive status. Shocking, isn't it, when we think about it in the reverse? Where is the teacher accountability in all this? Where are the guardrails
30
for
seconds.
rogue educators? It is clear this rule is clearly lacking and by our own agent's admission won't prevent these events from taking place in schools. We ask that the board adopt Natalie Klein's amendment as a foundational framework to address this issue moving forward. And I would like to to add that I definitely reiterate this, that there definitely needs to be some more changes to this rule. Thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you. Next, we'll have on Zoom, Dee Gray with Nicole Mason on deck. Dee? We're not hearing you. Are you muted?
My name is Dee Gray. I was born in Salt Lake City in 1982. I graduated from Murray High, then Dixie State College, and later the University of Utah. I have 3 kids. I've lived, worked, played, loved, and lost in Utah. I am trans non-binary. I am a Utahn. Suicide attempts rates among trans youth is a staggering 41%. Studies show that to get trans kids' mental health outcomes to equal their peers, all we have to do is accept them and let them live as their authentic selves. However, our school board is considering amendments from members that will ban the teaching of specific topics, which include empathy, cultural awareness, inclusion, and diversity. Why are we banning kindness when kindness is so incredibly effective at saving our children's lives? It's time for Utah to bring back kindness. It is nice to not laugh at your friends because they have spinach in their teeth, but it is kind to discreetly inform them in order to reduce further embarrassment. It is nice to only hear a history that is comfortable, but it is kind to hear the struggle that many of us have had to experience just to gain equal access to the law. That didn't just happen, that was done to us. It is kind for our kids to learn about what we've all been complicit in so that they can fix what we have failed to. Even if that may make some of us feel guilty. It is through those honest feelings and reactions to the reality of the harm we've created, that will help our kids create the foundations for equality and equity in the future. And that feeling of guilt that we feel, the challenging questions our kids ask us, that embarrassment, that's kindness.
30
that's
seconds.
the opportunity for growth, for learning, for repentance. It is our opportunity to start helping our kids to create a more peaceful world. Inclusion, equity, compassion, these words aren't being twisted to form a narrative against conservative viewpoints. They're accurately describing the real exclusion, the real inequity, and the real lack of compassion that are being perpetrated onto people in your community right now. Words like those by my representative, Natalie Klein, who claimed that a section in the library declaiming all art welcome with stories about people like me is grooming children. It is not grooming children
Last
to want
sentence,
an appropriate
please. Can you sum
book
it
for
up?
my
Thank
children
you.
to read, to understand who I am. That's education, that's love, that's kindness. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we'll have Nicole Mason with Melissa Moore on deck. Nicole? Welcome. You're muted. You unmute? I love that mute button.
There we go. Sorry about that.
You're fine.
It's actually Emily Daly. We had to make a quick switch this morning, but I am the legislative advisor for Utah Parents United. I would like to bring to your attention the comment of a USBE representative who spoke to the Jordan board meeting on June 8th. He claimed authorship of the rule, I as the drafter of this rule, at this meeting, and made it clear USBE has no intention of putting an end to the divisive concepts ruining our schools and pitting our children against one another and their parents. I quote, "The topic of critical race theory or diversity, equity, and inclusion, however people want to define it, are essentially the same." Later, he states, the board does not use those terms interchangeably. They are viewed to be very different things. The House and the Senate asked you to address CRT, and instead you addressed diversity, equity, and inclusion. The USBE representative used doublespeak, the language used to deceive, usually through concealment or misrepresentation of the truth. When he communicated, they mean the same thing, but are not used interchangeably. It was also stated USBE keeps CRT in the higher ed definition, the theory that came out in the 1970s regarding systemic racism, that racism is somehow baked into the system that exists today. This was brought up because it is really important to know what we mean by them, the terms, so that we know what to put guardrails around and versus what we are not. He also quotes, additionally, I would like to highlight definitions because this is where the real context lies. It is where a rule or bill gains or loses its teeth. However, this rule has neglected to define critical race theory. In closing, I would like to highlight a final quote from this presentation. The theories behind these things, the prohibitions, can be discussed. We were very specific. As this rule is written, nothing in Jordan needs to change. Therein lies the concern. By your representative's own admission, this rule does nothing to address what is happening in our schools.
To that end, we support Board Member Klein's amendment and ask the board to adopt it as a framework from which to navigate moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we will have Melissa Moore with Kevin Lineback on deck.
Can you hear me?
Melissa?
Can you guys hear me? Yeah, my mic's really bad. I don't
You have
know
to
if
turn your
anybody can
mic.
hear me.
We can barely hear you.
Yeah, my mic's on. I think it's just really quiet. Can anybody hear me?
Nope, can't hear. Can we come back to you? This Melissa?
Yeah. Yeah.
Kevin? Kevin Linebach?
Hey, thanks for the opportunity. So I was not born or raised in Utah. I've been living here for 20 years. I'm a parent. I'm an educator. I've been a substitute teacher for a few years. I've taught classes for special needs kids, or rather I've helped be an aide. I've taught in West Jordan, South Jordan, Sandy, Riverton, Draper, Harriman. I've taught all grades. And there's been a false claim perpetuated that there's racism in Utah schools. I speak Spanish, I speak English, okay? I've never seen any racism. I've never seen any teacher lack training or sensitivity or resources, especially with kids with special needs. The special needs classes that I were a part of were excellent. They were fantastic experiences for me, okay? From living in Utah, I've met so many people around the world. I've met people from Iran, from South America, from Mesoamerica. The majority of them tell me that they love Utah because people here are polite and they're willing to sacrifice to serve others, okay? So this whole narrative that we need CRT or equity, or whatever they want to call it, because things are so bad in Utah is not the case, okay? Especially my friend from, we got a friend from Mexico who said that she's lived here for 20 years. She's never had any problem with racism. And if she were to stay in Mexico, her child would never have the opportunity to receive an education because they do not have the resources.
30 seconds.
So please, we need to reject this poisonous philosophy, okay? It teaches kids to hate each other based on their skin color, okay? And I totally support Member Klein's amendment to this proposal. Thanks.
Al Jackson with Elena Erickson on deck. Al, are you with us?
Yes, I am. I didn't know I was on deck. I'd like to focus my remarks on the educational equity definition on lines 26 through 30 of the rule. The reference to distributing resources as it relates to educational equity is incomplete and should be defined separately. Invariably, these resources are taken from other areas in the system, and history has shown that money never ends up being used where it could be most effective. I invite you to incorporate targeted measures that build an accountability so we can find out the effectiveness as it relates to better classroom performance. I implore you to focus resources on the actual development of the student, which will in turn allow that child to be an agent of their own uplift through skill development, innovation, and relentless practice. Everyone on this panel has told their children to do their very best in the classroom by staying out of trouble, doing your assignments, and working hard. That's the same message for all of our children, regardless of their color, ethnic background, gender, sexual orientation, or social status. My wife and I have sent 4 out of our 5 children to public schools in Utah County, and what we desired most was for our children to be seen as equals and not what it says in the rule, quote, each student's unique background, close quote, which I feel has racial overtones. Instead of guiding the child to the challenge, we pat them on the head, treating them as victims or the oppressed. Ask any average parent of color, and that parent will acknowledge that racism and discrimination do exist, and it will always exist. But that is an external problem that can be overcome through hard work and perseverance. What we want for our children is to be trained in skill development, not grievance. To ensure this doesn't occur, I urge the committee to adopt the amendment proposed by Board Member Natalie Klein, which embodies clear and distinct definitions as it relates to what is unacceptable to teach. I further invite all of us to focus on what our children can become as opposed to where they come from or what they look like. Each child's value and worth are equal in the sight of God. I invite us all to see our children as he does. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next we'll have Elena Erickson with Marilyn Christensen on deck.
My name is Elena Erickson. I'm with Restore Liberty and Utah Freedom Coalition. It is my honor to be with you today. The year was 1776, and 56 signers changed the world by declaring simple truths of equality and natural, unalienable rights. And the American spirit was born. Today, those sentiments still hold true with the 14th Amendment that guarantees, with the 13th Amendment that guarantees that we do not have slavery, that no man or woman is above another. And in the 14th Amendment, it talks about we do not have the right to take unalienable rights away from anybody else. As a school board membership, each of you have taken an oath to uphold the constitutions. This includes Article 1, Section 4 of the Utah Constitution. The rights of the conscience shall never be infringed. And furthermore, Title 62A says it talks about the rights of parents. In light of the new school year, and in the quietude of the moment, I invite you to offer yourself some introspection and ask yourselves, by what authority and what jurisdiction do you have to deny the people of Utah, the children of Utah, their natural rights? For are we not all equal? In consideration of medical mandates, we as the parents have the rights, and we will not waive those. This is not about who's right or wrong or what the science says. This is about the American spirit, to live according to the dictates of our conscience. We're not asking for permission from you, and we won't. And to mirror the Declaration of Independence, we have the people to alter or abolish our government for our welfare. And in the Utah Constitution, it says, and they have the right to alter or reform the government. So in closing, I will say that history has a curious way of repeating itself. And that if those who do not uphold their oaths and who are in breach of contract, we will hold you liable, and we will dismiss you from your positions. Thank you.
Okay, next we'll have Marilyn Christensen. And then, it's Zoom. We'll try Melissa Moore again. Seems like there's one more. James Sullivan.
Hi, and thank you so much. This is my second time attempting this. So my name is James Sullivan. I can go into what I do, my background, but I really want to take the next minute and 53 seconds to kind of share my feelings on critical race theory as a conservative black man in America. The current rally cry for the conservative community is that critical race theory basically tells a white child that they're inherently racist and inherently evil. It's then debated by professors and teachers that it's not, but critical race theory actually it leads that child to believe that they're inherently racist and inherently evil for their ancestry. To comment on that, it dates back to the transatlantic slave trade between the years of 1514 and 1866, where in critical race theory it says that the white European male is basically responsible for all slave trade and oppression to the African community. North America in that time period only had 307,000 slaves. South America had 2.5 million. Cuba had over 1.5, and Europe had only 47,000 African slaves. So the notion that white Europeans are responsible for slavery and all oppression to the African community is backwards. To provide an equitable playing field, saying that that the black child cannot succeed unless the white child steps down, is in turn saying that the black child is inherently stupid and inherently incapable of accomplishing anything unless the white community allows them that step up. I believe that if you believe that critical race theory is the way to empower the black community, you need to do more research, and you need to actually find out what is affecting the black community. Thank you so much.
I'll do a last call. There's two that have signed up, both on Zoom. Marilyn Christensen, are you there? Okay. Melissa Moore. We couldn't hear you before, so we'll try to pick you up again.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me now?
Okay. Do your best, and it's coming up on our screen, and we can read your words.
Okay, I'll try to do my best. Hopefully you can hear something. I am a mom of 3 elementary age children. I am very invested in what my kids are being taught. For this reason, I actually pulled my kids out of public school, and I've been homeschooling them. I know that what they're taught at such a young age will be the foundation to who they will become. I take this responsibility very seriously. It is my responsibility to ensure that they are being given the best opportunities to build a great foundation, and I don't feel right now the schools are the best place for this. I will not stand by and let the schools corrupt and indoctrinate my kids. The rural educational equity is a great example of this. I did attend that public hearing a couple weeks ago and signed up to speak, but didn't get a chance to speak when I was there. I would like to start by addressing that the groups that were presenting were very lacking in diversity. And I think the board would want a fair balance of perspectives presented on a rule called educational equity in schools. Especially, and I also like to note how one of the groups, the House Democratic Caucus, even though they already had a chance to speak, were given 2 of their members were given extra time during the public comment time and moved to the top, keeping others from being able to speak. I'm not sure why that would happen when this was a public comment and parents
30 seconds.
I also want to address the how the rural educational equity is harming our children. Equity, I know it sounds good, but really what we end up getting is kids growing up thinking that they don't have to work for anything because they will just be given to them, or on the other hand, those who will learn, it does not matter how hard they work, and you will never be able to achieve they will only be able to achieve the same.
Can you close?
Else. So anyway, I think teaching victimhood is very harmful teaching, and will hold them back from their true potential. So I think it's just really important that the rule needs to be rewritten so it doesn't endorse any form of equity-based policies in the schools. Thanks.
Thank you. I'm glad you were able to connect. Okay, this concludes our public comment. We're going to move forward on our agenda, but before we go to the next item, we're going to have a quick, about an 8-minute break. So let's try to be back in business approximately 20 till.